You continue your journey through the dead mire, unsure of how much time has passed since you began. Is it day, night? The overcast and almost mystical fog that pervades the area has dampened your senses and made it very difficult to tell up from down anymore. Yet you persist. And as you walk through, stepping between hard, crunching ground beneath your feet and the slosh of the muck in the water below, you notice the trees begin to take on the color of bone, of marrow beneath. And as you begin to feel complacent in this area, in the silence, you hear a slosh from below. You turn around. It wasn't one of your allies. And then a light laugh from somewhere amongst the fog, when suddenly viney tendrils lift up from the mire and slash through the body of your companion. He falls to his knees in the muck. Face down, he plants into the water. He may be alive, but between the bleeding and the suffocation of the inky black water, you are unsure. You look to rush to him when you notice you are grasped yourself. You look around and you attempt to swing your sword, unsure if your friend will make it. And you look to your other allies. They are approaching near. Will they make it in time?
Always watching for epic games.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Vigilant Games channel. I am DMKC, your purveyor of stories, your tactician of mechanics. Stick with me if you want to fuse the two and grow your game to become a more exciting, intense cinematic adventure. That intro is exactly the kind of evocative experience that you get from a game that is a bit grittier in nature and a bit more, shall I say, hardcore. And I hope you realize, as before we move forward, you'll have to accept that that intro was indeed a narrative retelling of in-game events. Of course, die rolls were made. There always needs to be a trust between the dungeon master and the players in any game that you play, and the DM should never take the narrative away from the players. Today on Vigilant Games, I'm doing my first review of Runehammer's Dungeons & Dragons 5e Hardcore Mode. I'm clearly a fan of Runehammer Games and of Hanker Infernal. I've linked to his channel many times in my video. I will do so again right now, up in this corner here. And I really take an interest in the kind of games and environments that he creates. His work has led to a lot of inspiration for my own work and the things that I want to create and share with you guys. So I find that this is now the perfect time going into the new year to review one of his works, because moving forward I really want to describe the kind of game that I am making, the kind of game experience I want to have no matter which game that you're playing, and it is indeed a more hardcore, gritty game. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a grim, dark genre. It doesn't have to be a hopelessness atmosphere to be hardcore. That's a genre. Hardcore is a play style. And merging the two is very simple. I don't think you could have like a grim, dark adventure without it being a hardcore playstyle. The place that I'm coming from with the kind of game that I want to experience is if I'm playing in a setting that isn't superheroes. If I'm not playing Mutants and Masterminds, or if I'm not playing any variation on any other game where we've decided to play superheroes, I don't want to feel like a superhero. Whether I'm playing or running a game. I don't want to run a game for people who feel like superheroes. And 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, and I would even argue Pathfinder 2nd edition, these games make it very easy for the players to be incredibly powerful very quickly. And I mean, I've had this experience from a DM perspective and as a player. I don't want to feel super powerful. I want to feel like just an adventurer, a regular guy who has some abilities, and I'm just doing the best I can using my resources to get through these very difficult adventures that I'm out and I'm trying to do. And I think that fits into any setting that isn't superheroes. I think Wizards of the Coast could really benefit from creating their own version of a hardcore game. And it's kind of surprising that they haven't done so yet. Yes, 5th edition has done a wonderful job with creating a base for new players to easily come into and understand. And it's grown the new player base immensely, and it's made the material that independent creators want to create for tabletop games more accessible because there's so many more players in the market now, and for that, I can't thank Wizards of the Coast enough. But they also have a very old player base. These guys have been around since 1st or 2nd edition. I haven't been around that long, only starting in 3rd edition myself, but I kind of enjoy the mind space of an older player base. Not necessarily all of the older rules. I feel like it was a little overly complicated back then, a little too crunchy. The old mind space of wanting a very down-to-earth, you know, down in the dirt, sword in hand, using my resources kind of adventure. I want grit. I want real. I want visceral. I want to feel like death is around the corner. And even if I'm level 5, a goblin, if I'm not paying attention, a little goblin could come up and stab me in the back. And that could be it for me. Until Wizards of the Coast finds the time to make their own hardcore variation rules, I'm very grateful to have a creator like Runehammer to create a hardcore version of the game themselves. And as we'll get into, I don't think everything here is applicable to my games, but for the 37 pages of content that you get at, I think I got this for $3.50 on DriveThruRPG. I'll link to that in the description. It's a steal, guys. This clearly took a lot of work and a lot of collaboration, and it's amazing that he provided this to us as an option when, you know, he's not a writer for Wizards of the Coast. He is an independent creator, but he took the time, recognized that there were people playing 5th edition who weren't necessarily playing his work but might want something that is more like this, and he took the time to make it. And that's awesome. And now, review time. We start right off. The front cover is this picture. I'll put the photo up here. The picture of the skull, the bloody skull with a bunch of arrows through it, and a die with a 1, the nat 1 showing, and then just 5e hardcore mode. If that doesn't tell you exactly what this is gonna be, nothing else will. I mean, that is just the perfect. The work is done by Hanker Infernal himself, and it's one of his best drawings in my opinion. It's so key into the environment that you're about to read into. And another thing he does very well is the format of the entire product. By the way, this is it's a PDF. You don't even have to order the physical book. Pay a couple bucks online and you get the free PDF. He even has a mobile version, which I'm using right now as a reference, which is the entire product. And it's very mobile friendly, easily readable. But his formatting, he always takes very careful consideration to complete a thought on every page. Nothing runs runs into another page. There's no confusion of what text leads where, or what chunk of text is under which subsection. He's very careful in how he lays out his pages, and you know, the pictures that I'm placing up here, I'm hoping convey that message. Also, the artwork that the artwork inside the book is not his own. I believe he collaborated with another individual, but it's all this black and white inked drawings that just, it feels very like it feels like very Berserk, if you've ever read that manga. It just makes the world feel so difficult. These black and white inked fantasy images are just beautiful on every page, and it creates this feeling of need, of just trying to live day by day, and just we're in this adventuring life. It's the best thing that we could think to do in these hard times, but good lord, it's not easy. Don't be an adventurer if you can help it. Do anything else. We're stuck in this, but damn it, we're gonna do it. That is just, it's awesome. The introduction is just this kind of beautiful, evocative story. He goes over 3 points to outline the hardcore way, and I'll read through these right now for you guys, because this is the core of what this document is. And if this is you, then it's worth it. The hardcore way, 5th edition is by design built for a wide audience. In hardcore mode, you will be building and running encounters for a far narrower, more committed player set. As a hardcore GM, you will live by a code. Be fair but merciless. The numbers will be harsh, the rolls volatile. Get the dice out in the open and be a guardian of their absolute authority, even when they are cruel. Referring to the dice, of course. And that's a perfect rule, I think, really for any game. Be fair, but be merciless. Be a friend to death. Killing characters is not your specialty, but when death does come, be decisive. Have follow-up plans and prep. Be ready for death to be a part of play, not an ending. And that's kind of like something you want to talk to your players about, right, in session 0. Let them know that if they die in the game, it's not the end. Kind of help create this atmosphere for them. Like, have a couple characters ready in your back pocket, and if you die, we're gonna give you a good death. It's gonna be awesome, and it's gonna feel great, but it will be real. We're not gonna stray from death in this game. I'm not out to get you, but it's a very real expectation. Prize intensity over detail. Go fast, go big, and let little details remain unspoken. Focus on the sharp, the sinister, the immediate. Leave minutia to scholars and historians. And that encapsulates pretty much my mission statement of this channel. Go fast and go big. I want an awesome story of an adventure. I don't care about the minute details of who is what distance of feet from who. Those 3 points are the perfect outline for the game that I want to play. Going through some of the now the mechanical elements that he implements throughout this book. I'm just going to lightly dust through them. I don't want to go too deep, because it really is worth it for you guys to go and grab this yourself, and I don't want to take away from that. He talks about 3d6 attributes in order, and I think 3d6, going back to that kind of older method of rolling attributes, is a good way to go. Basically, the idea is to have lower attributes overall. I don't like the idea of my players having an 18 score to start out. I don't want that as a possibility. I think the highest score should be a 15 or a 16. And yes, 3d6 if you get all 6s, cool. You get, that's 18, obviously. But it's very, very unlikely. It's so unlikely to happen that I'm actually okay when it does, because it's not going to be everybody. It's going to be like one player, and cool. Somehow they were born special. They have a little bit of an advantage in this dark world. He talks about rolling them in order, and that kind of goes along with the older playstyle method. I don't know 100% about that, because I like customization. I like characters to have options, and I still want them to build the characters that they want. They're just not going to be extremely powerful. But I want them to be free to decide on the character that they play. So rolling in order kind of dictates it for you. Now, I've done that as my own choice. The DM didn't make me do it, but there was one game we were going to get into, and I had no idea. I didn't have any ideas for what I wanted to play. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to roll my stats in order and see what I get. And then I ended up getting pretty good strength and awesome charisma, so I made a paladin. Pure hit dice. He talks about hit dice, and he goes into many different methods of how to use hit dice, which is awesome. If hit dice are a resource in the game, which they are in Dungeons & Dragons, it's a cool resource that I don't think is utilized enough. And Hardcore mode comes up with some great ideas that I've carried over into my game when I'm running Dungeons & Dragons of how to use hit dice in different ways, including how to use them with healing potions, how to use them in combat. It's actually really interesting, and it gives all players options of using their hit dice outside of like the feats that make them available. Also, along with that, the idea of having less hit points. Overall, hit points are a big thing in 5th edition, and I mean, it's kind of been since 3rd edition, they've been creeping up. Players in general have way more hit points than they did in the first couple of iterations of the game. And yes, the damage has all kind of changed too, but it's led to this like bloat in numbers that I just don't feel is necessary. And if you have like just a crap ton of hit points, how are you ever going to be scared to die? On top of all the healing that you get from members in your party, I mean, most likely you have a healer in your party, so butt ton of hit points plus a healer, plus almost everybody has healing options now. So that feeling of death is around the corner isn't really there anymore, and health is a big part of that. He goes through other options like simplifying skills, creating an injured condition, which is really cool. It has to do with what happens if you go down to 0 hit points but get back up. New ways for death and how the death mechanic can work a bit differently. He introduces an interesting idea called Zimmer's Candle, which kind of works like a save point in a video game. I don't know how I feel about it because it's a little too video gamey for me, but give it a read, see if you like it. Going over the death mechanic, he mentions that there's only one death saving throw. This was actually a bit confusing to me because he says, when reduced to 0 hit points and knocked senseless, you begin to bleed out. Only the medical or magical aid of a teammate or external effect can revive you by healing one or more hit point. The concept of down but stable is simply not part of hardcore mode, which I like. I've continued with that concept myself. But it says you're dead if you are reduced to -10 hit points, if you are unconscious and bleeding out for 3 rounds of play, or if you fail a save against death. And this is a bit confusing because he says there's only one death saving throw, but so if you go down, do you make that saving throw and then you bleed out for 3 rounds of play? Or you go down, you bleed out for 3 like where does the death save come in? If you're saying that the bleeding out for 3 rounds or failing a saving throw are 2 different ways of dying, that's the way it looks here. That's a bit confusing. So this is one of those that I didn't carry over in my game. I'll get into my own version of hardcore rules later, heavily inspired by this document, which is why I wanted to go over it. But yeah, this specific way of using death is not something that I carried over, but cool ideas here. Characters only going to level 10 is, of course, an awesome idea for helping the players not get, like, super strong by the end of the game. He talks about zones, which, of course, I'm a big advocate of. That's what I use in my game. His classic experience points model harkens back to when characters used to level differently, like wizards needed more experience to level up, and fighters and rogues needed less experience to level up because of the power gap. Wizards, of course, being anyone that has access to spells is always going to have an advantage over those that don't have access to spells. That's just a fact of the game. Magic is super strong. His method of rolling to cast instead of using spell slots also kind of balances out the magic a little bit, which is very interesting, and I actually am going to make a whole video on what I've done with that at a later time. The GM style. These are the kind of things that Wizards of the Coast really need to get a bit better at putting forthright in their books, and really helping game masters, dungeon masters understand what it means to run a game. He has an entire 4 pages dedicated to just the GM style and how to run a hardcore game. What it means to take care of all of these elements, making sure that the numbers matter, that the numbers are taken very seriously, and not to fudge rolls, having your dice out in the open, and whatever happens, happens. He then goes on to talk about the genre of the game, the grimdark. He refers to it as Drimgark, which is a little play on the word that he uses, because he wants to be very clear that yes, this is a gritty, dark adventure, but that doesn't mean that your table has to be depressing. Like, have fun with it. Like, you don't have to not laugh as players. Have some fun, add some humor, enjoy the experience, but the element is still dark. And he, of course, goes on. He includes 2 complete adventures along that include all of the rules that he's talked about, all of the monsters with the methods that he's given to create them and have easier monster creation, which is really cool. So the amount of content that you get in this book for just a couple of dollars it's mind-blowing. So with that, it brings my review of 5e Hardcore Mode to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed, got something from it. Head out, grab your own copy if it's something that you love. Really, it's only a couple of bucks, like I said. DriveThruRPG, the link in the description. This is not mine, I'm not sponsored, I don't work with Hankrin. This is just me plugging a great resource, a great tool. And coming in the future weeks, I'm going to provide my take on a hardcore version of 5th edition. A lot of inspiration is taken from Hankrin's work, but a lot is my own as well. And starting next week, I have the video coming out of 3 quick elements that can make your game more hardcore right now. Enjoy. Until then, guys, stay vigilant. Thanks for watching. Peace.